One educator, recognizing the signs and choosing to report them, was all it took to save her student from sexual exploitation. One neighbor taking action was all it took to free a young woman who had been sold into slavery right next door. One bystander choosing not to look away was all it took to rescue a 13-year-old who was tied to a bed, drugged, and sold for sex. One person, one moment, one act that saved a life. You are about to see the stories of these real Texans who chose to be the one in the fight to stop human trafficking in our state.
I'm 22, I was 13 at the time. Until this day, in ways, it still affects me. Before it happened to me, I knew it happened, but I never knew that it would happen to me.
We start tonight with a human trafficking concern right here in Odessa.
An Amarillo man is jailed in Wichita County after a human trafficking operation conducted by law enforcement agencies in West Texas.
It's constantly moving throughout the country, even here in El Paso.
We're not just talking about forced prostitution, but forced labor.
Human trafficking knows no race, knows no gender, knows no ethnicity.
And it doesn't matter where you're from, whether you're an adult, whether you're a child.
I'm here to tell you it happens everywhere. It happens in the smallest of towns. It happens in the largest of cities.
It's not a Madisonville thing, but if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere.
Human trafficking is essentially the debasement of humanity. It is humanity at our worst.
It's happening in your backyard and right next door to you, and you cannot ignore it. Somebody's life depends on you.
The very first trafficking case that was tried in San Antonio, Texas, involved a 13-year-old child. Human trafficking was not a word that anyone in San Antonio knew, but they learned about it through her testimony.
It actually started like any other day. Like, I woke up, a friend called me, can you go with me over here? Something that I do every day, like people I hang around with every day. And I went. We were actually there to buy drugs. I remember walking in, talking, and I asked if I could use the bathroom. I remember using the bathroom, and when I tried getting out, I couldn't. I tried opening the door, like messing with the lock, and it wouldn't open. It was a weird looking door. Well, it had a lock on the outside. I heard them tell my friend that I had already left. So she ended up leaving. And I remember them coming to the restroom and opening the door. And just right there, I guess something snapped in my head what was going on. So I tried to run and like fight and kick, but I was too small. It was two grown men.
It's just that girl. She's that type of kid. Well, what is that exactly? She's somebody's baby. She's somebody's daughter. They're somebody's son. And they matter. All of them matter. And nobody should exploit people at their lowest point.
Human trafficking is modern-day slavery. It is the exploitation of men, women, and children by third parties for their own profit or gain.
This is a problem, a social problem, and a crime that needs all of us to play our part.
It's a planned community, so the bottom line is that everybody that came here was just suburbia. It was, attracted families. That was the whole idea of the Woodlands. So it does tend to be very quiet, relatively boring, and a lot of people call it a bubble. This street, specifically with only the 6 houses, we're usually just sitting out here with the kids playing around. So if there is ever a car that comes in, which is only really 4 families that ever come in or out, we get up and we move. So it's a huge difference when there's multiple cars coming in all the time, like we're constantly getting up and getting down.
For the most part, every person that's coming by, and if there's a strange car, everyone that's sitting out here, we're all sort of, who is that? So I got tired of walking to the window every 30 minutes and taking photos with my iPhone of the cars coming and going. We had gotten our father-in-law a deer cam And I set it up, and after the first day I came in and I put the memory card in, and I think it was like 42 cars had come in and out of our street. This car is interesting because it was the owners of the house, and they would come once a week to drop off groceries, and that was probably the only car that you would notice again and again. It was amazing to see all of the high-end cars coming in, Porsches to Maseratis to broken down pickup trucks to cars with stickers that their children were on the honor roll at our local school. I did a very simple search. All I did was search for the house. And I came across an ad on Backpage.com. And actually on this page, I typed in Rolling Mill. And sure enough, it came up. You know, just a simple search of the Woodlands. Even today, you're going to find escorts and all kinds of things. But it was very alarming to see my street name on here with this ad with these women and the services that they were providing. It was quite shocking.
The neighbors started contacting the sheriff's office and started saying, hey, there's something wrong with this house. There's something not right. There's a lot of men going in and out. There's a lot of traffic. There's a lot of traffic after hours, which is very unusual in this neighborhood because this house is located on a cul-de-sac. I can recall calling my supervisor and telling him, you're not going to believe this. We have a human trafficking case in the Woodlands. One of the realities that we discovered during the investigation is these women being held against their will were being raped daily, over and over again, at this residence.
They'd pull in and then another car would pull in and they'd wait and the one car would back out, and it was a constant flow of traffic. It was like a locust. They just kept coming and coming, and then when we knew exactly what was happening in there with these women, it was really disheartening, especially having two daughters. It's very frightening.
And we realized that these same girls were being transferred not only in Montgomery County but also to Harris County and being sold in other locations for sex over and over again from one spot to another spot. And this led to an even larger investigation that we discovered was in New York. And we discovered that these women were being brought in for this purpose from China.
And we have another breaking news alert out of Montgomery County. 4 arrests linked to a human trafficking bust.
They discovered 4 different locations the girls were being taken to. Prosecutors say in this case they found 8 victims, women who are Chinese nationals around 20 to 30 years old.
We're our brother's keeper. We're supposed to watch out for each other. And that's what these neighbors did. And they shut down an organization that was a multi-million-dollar organization that did nothing but hurt people.
The day that I was watching the news and I saw the bust had happened, I was ecstatic.
With one phone call, he literally changed everything.
They took me out the restroom. And I remember just being so scared because I didn't know what was going to happen. I fought, I kicked, I screamed. It's like nobody heard me. They tied me up to the bed. And they just took turns raping me. For the first couple of days, it was just them two. And then after that, they would be at the door, and other guys that would come to buy drugs, they would tell them, pay me, and you could basically rape her. And I remember I would kick and scream, but I really couldn't do nothing because I was tied up. And after that, it was like day in, day out, all like different guys would just come in and rape me. And I remember when I guess they got tired of me fighting and kicking, even though I couldn't really, it wasn't doing nothing. They started shooting me up with drugs. And at that point, I guess after so much of it, I couldn't fight no more. I remember them threatening me with a knife, telling me they would kill me. And I remember at one point, I told him, just do it. Because I had already given up hope of me getting out. Even though after them shooting me up with so much drugs and me not being able to feel it, I knew it was happening.
Life in prison or the death penalty could await the truck driver charged with transporting at least 39 illegal immigrants in a sweltering semi-truck from Laredo here to San Antonio.
But as we looked at the list of crimes, we did not see human trafficking listed.
Smuggling and trafficking are two entirely different crimes. Smuggling or illegal entry is a crime against the border of a nation or against the sovereignty of a nation. Human trafficking, on the other hand, is a crime against a human being. Smuggling or illegal entry requires movement. You don't have to be transported to be trafficked. You can be trafficked in your own home.
And that breaking news coming as we've just learned that the couple accused of holding their nanny hostage for years has been granted bond and will be released from jail.
Folks who exploit other people for a profit, they do so for that profit, and will do that in any industry where they think they can make money off someone else that they're exploiting.
Court documents show the woman worked nearly 20 hours a day here inside the family's home in a gated neighborhood in Katy, where prosecutors say the woman was mentally and physically abused, was refused access to a phone, and was only allowed outside twice a day to walk the couple's children as an unpaid nanny.
It really is about using lies, deception, abuse, be it physical or sexual abuse, to make someone do some kind of work for a profit.
That woman has now been rescued from what is being called a human trafficking situation.
There have been multiple cases where immigrants have been promised the American dream. They've been promised a green card where they have the opportunity to come and work in a satisfying position that they can use to protect and take care of their family.
It was an offer he just couldn't pass up.
They said they're going to pay me $15 the hour and they're going to give me 60-hour guarantee a week. And they didn't pay me the 15 promise, they paid me $6 the hour, and they didn't give me the 60-hour guarantee, they gave me only 20.
Traffickers will use a variety of tactics, both to recruit victims into a labor trafficking situation and or to maintain them there and to maintain control over them so that they keep working. One might be taking advantage of the vulnerability of someone. So maybe someone is vulnerable because they've fled their home country
we complain, you know, and the immediately thing that the employer did is to threaten me. And threat the group of workers said, you don't like this, I'm going to send you back to your country.
They may take advantage of someone's vulnerability because they have substance abuse issues and or poverty, simple poverty, and or they're faced with some other kind of oppression. Traffickers identify vulnerability in someone and exploit that vulnerability.
It can be in the sex industry, or it can be in other industries that are considered legal industries like agriculture, hotel work, construction, food processing, potentially any industry.
If someone uses force, fraud, or coercion to make someone else do some kind of work or labor or commercial sex activity, that is considered human trafficking. A common misconception about human trafficking is that it only affects women and girls. And yet what we know from the research and we know from the practice working with victims and survivors is that it also affects men and boys.
This research is unique. It's non-generic. It's Texas-specific. And it's innovative because few states have any research like this that can say it is specific to its state. What we found is the prevalence is 79,000 minor and youth victims of sex trafficking. What we found in labor trafficking, 234,000 labor trafficking victims. I mean, those numbers are astronomical for the state of Texas.
Minor and youth sex trafficking cost the state of Texas approximately $6.6 billion over victims' lifetimes, and traffickers steal approximately $600 million annually from victims of labor trafficking in Texas. Madisonville is a town of approximately just under 5,000 people. It's a quiet, nurturing, close-knit community.
It is the idyllic community where people want to come here and retire, or people want to come here and this is where they want to raise their children because it's such a warm and gentle community. It's safe.
If I had to describe Madisonville, it would be community. I love this town. I love Madisonville. But if it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. It really can.
What's interesting about the Madisonville case and how one person can make a difference. One citizen of Madisonville reached out to law enforcement because she saw something that disturbed her. She saw what she believed was a young child, a young girl getting assaulted.
Carrie Rose saw something that she saw didn't look right, and her first thought was, I don't know if this is anything, so I won't say anything.
I was getting ready to turn right onto my road, and I noticed a really high-end Mercedes. So when I drove past, I noticed that there was a young blonde girl. She's screaming, help me, like help me. She's screaming like I could hear her. And so I was so shook up that I pulled over and I called 911, and by this time they did pull out into traffic. They were going towards 45. And so I just called and I said, I don't know what I just witnessed, but you have to come fast. There's a Mercedes, they're headed towards 45, and they're holding someone against their will. You know, at first, I was like, I don't know what I just witnessed, but it took me 10 seconds to be like, I have to be that person's voice.
This was a basic case of 33-year-old approximately female here in Madisonville that was literally running a brothel on a nice quiet residential street. She was, had supplying drugs, supplying a roof over people's heads, supplying food to numerous transient and homeless females coming through the Houston area and on a circuit. And one of those such females was a child in which she had been literally grooming into prostitution since this girl was 12 years old. In fact, her mother, the girl's mother, introduced her to Jennifer Kelly. And Jennifer Kelly taught her prostitution, literally became her best friend, had a photo of her above her headboard in her bedroom of the child, and the child even got her name tattooed on her.
Jennifer was the Madisonville pimp.
And she's sitting in prison this day because of the actions of one person. Literally 2 children were saved. Human trafficking.
You know, I had the prosecutor sit across from me today. And at the end of our conversation, he looked at me and he said, because of that phone call and because I was willing, that I saved 2 girls' lives that day. You think about it happening in your neighborhood, on your street, when you witness something like I witnessed that day, it changes you. It changes everything.
I hope the day comes maybe where maybe our victim is 25 years down the road and maybe she has kids of her own, and it's at that point maybe for the first time she realized that somebody was a voice for her back when she didn't know that she needed a voice.
And you may be the only voice that they have. It's important. I'm realizing that now. It's really, really important to speak up and to be aware.
My name is Antoine Sattler. I've been driving the truck for 22 years. Truck drivers, we're all over the country, and so I wanted to take this opportunity not only while I am out here on the road driving and you know, making sure that America gets their goods and doing a job to support my family, but maybe I can also make a difference in someone else's life out here while I'm performing my job. Five years ago, before the training, if I would see anything on the road, I would pretty much say, oh man, that's a bad choice. You know, maybe the local authorities will handle it. Now that I've had the training with Truckers Against Trafficking, you realize that it's not a choice. And so having that training, now you can actually kind of reach out and try to get them the help that they need. At Walmart here, we have the 800 number that's posted on the side of our tractors. Anytime that we see any questionable activity, we can give the hotline number a call and try to get these people help. Some of the red flags, if you're at a rest area or a truck stop, you may see maybe a minivan or maybe a large SUV kind of parked amongst the driving area here, the parking area where the drivers are here taking their breaks, and that's some of the things you can look out for. Even your people that drive buses and RVs, people on vacation. If you see something, report it, say something. Don't be silent. You could be saving someone's life. I'm just one of hundreds of thousands of drivers out here today on the road. Just think if we all put our eyes and ears to this problem, what we can do to eradicate the human trafficking problem in this country.
I had already knew Bobby from the store where I used to hang out, S&J's. Before that, I had always pictured him as like a big brother, because he would always tell me, "You're too young to be out here, like go home. What are you doing? Go to school, do something. This is not the life you want." I think I was already there going on about 2 weeks. And I remember when he walked in the door, even though I had already given up on getting out and anyone ever helping me, that hurt. I remember crying, and in my head, all I was saying was, why? Like, out of all people, you, the one that I pictured as my brother. And I remember him, when Spider closed the door, he picks up his pants, because I guess he was trying to act like he was going to. But when he made sure the door was closed, he told me, he goes, "What happened? Like, I'm gonna get you out of here." He goes, "I'm gonna leave, but I'm coming back." And I remember telling him, like, "No, like, don't leave me here." He's like, "I promise I'm coming back." And I honestly didn't think he was gonna come back. But he did. Spider had left, I guess, to go get something that he didn't have. And I remember he's like, "Can you get up?" And I tried and I couldn't. He's like, "Just come on." And I remember I was running, and I remember I stopped and I looked back and I see Spider coming. And I got so scared that I froze, and I told him, "No, no." He's like, "Come on." He goes, "I'm not gonna let nothing happen to you." And we ran to he said it was his sister, Lucy. And they like helped me like clean me and like take a shower and everything. They gave me clothes.
Bobby Ojeda took the time to see a child in need. He could have walked away, and he made the difference. And because of that, she is alive today, because of Bobby Ojeda.
Human trafficking is a persistent problem in Houston.
Human trafficking is a problem in Houston on a lot of different levels. Top of the list, of course.
We're one of 2 cities in the country with 2 international airports within our geographical limits. And there are a number of highways in and out of the city of Houston. Our waterways, we're right here at the port, which make us a prime area, so to speak, for human trafficking. People, for example, engage in sex trafficking. That's an everyday phenomenon that we're trying to reduce. People being victimized in terms of labor practices. That can occur almost every single day, sometimes closer to you than what you may realize. We've got about 22,000 plus employees that we have worked with, trained to be more aware of human trafficking and to be proactive and work on the preventive end. We have worked to bring in the external partners, like the taxi industry. And so they've been generating emails and text messages.
We send out text and email blasts to our drivers to give them the warning signs and what to look for in regards to human trafficking. We have 50 cabs in the Houston area that have sign backs on them, and these cabs generate about 9 to 12 visual impressions per mile they drive.
But you have these taxis that are traveling on our streets, interacting with people in real time on a daily basis, and that they represent an additional set of eyes and ears, and they are texting and emailing and providing information. You know, you don't want to just be the hub for, you want to be the hub for the solutions. And that's our goal. We believe we can eliminate trafficking in the city of Houston if everyone does his or her part. And it's about getting people engaged, getting people to be in a proactive position, and one person can make a difference. Can you imagine what 2 or 3 can do?
I think it's important to remember that while investigators and prosecutors and social workers and counselors are doing great work against human trafficking, they cannot do it alone. They can't be the eyes and the ears on the street, in the neighborhoods. in the nail salon, out on the farm, to really recognize when things are not right.
You know, tonight it's the weekend. We are working. This is our non-traditional shift. So Backpage, if you don't know anything about it, I call it the other Craigslist. It's where you can find the people that are offering sexual services. A lot of these are adults. Some are minors. Picking them out is a little bit of a challenge. So this one is advertising 18 years old. There's her telephone number. Matter of fact, we know this kid. My name's Eliseo Mata. I'm with Barab County Juvenile Probation with the gang unit. Besides the traditional duties that we have, which is gonna be checking on some kids that are on probation and have curfews. Probation. And then there's an actual case that we want to try to take a stab into tonight. If we can locate her.
It's an ad taken off Backpage that Eliseo found. He knows this youngster. It says 19, but her age is what?
15.
15.
Gangs who used to primarily traffic guns and drugs are now turning to trafficking children. Because unlike a bag of cocaine, once you sell it, it's gone, you can sell a child over and over and over again.
We're doing a whole lot more than just chasing down a little bit of drugs or, you know, people who are violating their probation. We're fighting the big stuff, which is what I call the commercial sexual exploitation of kids.
I talk to a lot of parents who think, oh, this happens only to kids in those neighborhoods or kids who are in foster care, and actually, no, it doesn't.
All children are at risk for human trafficking, but there are certain risk factors that heighten that risk. Kids that are truant, kids that are homeless, kids that have been turned out or have run away from their homes, kids with learning disabilities, mental disabilities, physical disabilities, kids with addictions. The key that makes children most at risk for trafficking is accessibility. If the trafficker can access you away from the people that are supposed to protect you.
I was an assistant principal at the time, and my job was to ensure, first and foremost, the safety of students. My relationship with Kay was one that was quite unique. This was a student that was very independent, was very bubbly, very energetic. She never got in trouble at school. There were never any issues at school. Great attendance, great grades. Things began to take a turn in a negative way. She started to let her grades slip. There were increased absences. Then that turned into flat-out absenteeism. She was quiet when I did see her. She was nervous. Her physical appearance had changed drastically. I asked her, "Who's hurting you?" She told me, "You will never know. I promise you, Miss Yamaguchi, you will never find out who's hurting me."
What the text said was you need to contact these administrators in reference to a young girl who's possibly being pimped out in Pleasanton and Stockdale. It's a high school, beautiful campus, probably upper middle class to middle class kiddos that go there.
Then one day she came in, and we were working at that point with with the detectives at the time. So I was able to stall her, and then that's when the vehicle was searched and the father's phone was found.
It was her father. He had been recently released from prison, so she didn't know her father. She yearned for the love of her dad, and he came out and he exploited that. That's a tough weapon to defeat, is love, caring, all the emotions. And now you're gaining that from your trafficker. Why would you want to see that go away? You wouldn't, so you protect them. You protect them. And that's why it's tough for us as law enforcement to beat down those walls, to find the victims. They don't self-identify. So it's the others, like the administrators at Steele, that saw the signs and they knew something wasn't right and somebody needed to look into it, because that kid is worth it. Every kid is worth it. They don't get to pick what cards are dealt to them. And you have people that are bad that exploit that. They see the hands that are dealt. It's almost like they can be mind readers and they can pick out these kids. So you have got to be the one and continue to break through the walls. And when you're not getting the right response, you got to keep making another phone call, as Ruth Yamaguchi did. Ruth Yamaguchi, she's the reason. She's the reason why Kay's father is doing life in prison and that young girl was saved. There's no telling how many kids she saved.
In today's world, teaching kids internet safety is just something we have to do. We all need to care about this issue because all of the children in our lives are at risk.
I think you know that we brought everyone together today to talk about human trafficking.
How old were you guys when you guys got your first phone?
10.
6th grade.
12, probably.
I was 12.
12.
Yeah.
I've seen like 7-year-olds with iPhones.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. So how many of you, just out of curiosity, have any kind of parental restriction on your phone at all? One.
What kind of restriction? Now I feel like the loser.
Your parent would disagree. Yes. So what kind of restrictions? What can't you do?
Well, they have like a cutoff time for me at night. So when it's past 10 o'clock, I have to turn my phone. I can't take it with me to bed. I have to leave it out charging by my door in like the living room.
It's very typical for teenagers to get upset with their parents because there's some rule or something that they don't agree with. So you have a stranger on the outside who's giving you a promise of something better. So you can come live with me. There will be no rules. You can have your phone 24/7. We can travel. And so that's very alluring to children who are searching for some acceptance from some adult.
I'm guessing maybe most of you, if not all of you, have Snapchat or Instagram or something along those lines.
What do you use the most? What's your favorite?
Instagram. Twitter.
The tools of a trafficker on the internet are too many to list. Any social media site, chat rooms, any number of forums.
We live in a society where exploiters can access our kids not only in the malls and in youth shelters, but also in social media apps, in interactive games that they are constantly playing online. And so it's become much more efficient for traffickers and exploiters to access kids that way.
Me and my friend made this group chat on this messaging app, and it's like an open group chat, so if anyone looks up the tag for it, they can just join it. And then people just started like adding themselves to it and coming into it. From their profile picture, these are like grown men. These are not high schoolers. They'll contact me or they'll message me because they can see my account, and they'll be like, hey, what's up?
And your profile picture is you?
Yes.
So they know that you are not an adult woman?
Yeah.
Yes.
And they're looking for kids who are spending a lot of time on the social media apps, who are maybe sharing a little too much, who seem to be reaching out for someone to pay attention to them. They can tell that the parents aren't really watching, aren't really monitoring what they're doing online.
The people that are trying to lure young people aren't out there showing the ugly side of themselves, the predator sides of themselves. They're showing young people exactly what they want them to see. They're grooming them. They're looking for opportunity to maybe get them away from the adults in their life.
So in 7th grade, when I was obsessed with being famous, some guy DM'd me asking me if I wanted to become a star. And I was like, oh, yeah, me being the naive little 7th grader. I was like, oh, yes, totally, you know. He wanted information, his address, and everything. So to my mom, she was like, oh my God, block him. So we did. The next day, he made another account and then DM'd me again.
I would say traffickers cast a wide net. They'll send lots of friend requests, lots of follow requests, make lots of comments. They'll cast their net wide, and all they need is one. And whether it's general conversation over a couple hours, a few weeks, a few months, each victim is different. It's so common nowadays for teens and kids to build relationships online, whether they think they know that person or that person seems to have something in common with some of their interest or another friend, and so they allow that person into their social media world, whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, you name it, any of those, and they think they're talking to someone that they don't really know.
My phone's at 1%, but I actually have someone right now who's trying to follow me, and I don't know who they are, and it's been pending for like weeks, and I'm still trying to figure out who it is.
When I talk to parents about the internet, I usually start by talking about some scary person who comes to your front door, knocks on it, and asks to talk to your 12-year-old child. You would look at them, slam the door on their face, and probably call the police. But unfortunately, that same person has access to your 12-year-old son as he's on his PlayStation playing his video games with complete and total strangers that you've never met.
I would tell parents that it's imperative that they know what their kids are doing. If you're going to provide your child, your teen, with access to the internet, whether it's a tablet, a cell phone, a computer, it's imperative that you as the parent or the guardian or the influential person in that child's life to know what they're doing and who they're interacting with.
What are some of the apps that kids hide from their parents?
Snapchat.
I think Snapchat's
Snapchat.
Number one, probably. Like on my phone, because I have an Android, you can hide apps. Like if you go to your menu and then you tap on like the dots in the corner, you can hide apps, and unless you actually click show hidden apps, like you can't see them anywhere on your phone.
They've got to have adults, whether it's a trusted teacher or a counselor or a parent, who they can come to and say, hey, this is what's going on. What do I do about it?
I am Tanya Stafford. I was sold at the age of 13 by my mom for drugs. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. We are headed to the last house that I was kept for 8 of those 10 years. So we are headed to Nachita Street over here in Pleasant Grove. It's a part of Dallas. So this is the house that I was kept in for 10 years, 8 of the 10 years. And this is Elnita's house, my neighbor that saved me. As the Bible speaks of, love thy neighbor like you love yourself, and that's what she did for me. So if it had not been for Elnita Hamilton, I would probably be dead today. How he kept me for 10 years is beating, rape, threat of killing me and burying me in the backyard and somebody not knowing where I'm at. If you leave, I'll find you. You can't get away from me. Your mama didn't want you. Your mama sold you to me. Nobody wants you, nobody cares about you. All those years, 10 years, that's all I heard. And you have to understand, I heard that from my mama too.
They don't have a positive relationship in their entire life. There is no one for them to reach out to. I mean, at least they think that, right? They believe that.
Human trafficking is really about the dynamics of the exploiter with the victim.
But I wasn't chained up. I was chained in my mind though, as far as the fear. I was raped on a regular basis, told what to do, when to do, how to do, and if I did not get beat and raped.
You know, once you've been beaten, you don't have to be beaten that many more times to know that the beating's coming. So you do what you need to do, or you just defer to that person.
I'm gonna stay right there and reluctant to receive your help. If you just trying to help me, it's how much are you gonna help me? Are you gonna re-victimize me? What do you want? What do you want? Because if somebody asked me if I did need some help, the first thing in my mind is, because I was trained, they don't want anything but sex from you too.
Don't pepper them with questions. Don't sit there and try to pry. The question is building that relationship. Do you care about them as an individual? When that person knows that you love them for who they are, then that gives them the ability to share with you things that they wouldn't otherwise share.
When we are out in the community, do we recognize those folks that usually are invisible to us, those that live in the margins of our world? Do we look at them? Do we look them in the eye and have a real conversation with them? Do we ask them how their day is and pay attention to how their day is? You know, to solve this vile issue of human trafficking, it's about relationships.
And Elnita was persistent with asking, how am I today? Are you okay today? What Elnita offered me to get out that situation was friendship. First it came friendship. Well, first she built a relationship with helping me to trust her. If I trust you and you don't want anything from me, I'm gonna tell you everything. I will spill everything. I will tell it on everybody. And so I was taking out the trash, and she was getting in her car to go to work, and she asked me, was I okay? I told her, you know, I looked around, make sure he wasn't there, and then I told her I needed help. I needed help. Girls like me are kept. It's happening in your backyard, and right next door to you, and you cannot ignore it. You can't ignore it. Somebody's life depends on you.
We're on Vargas, not even 2 houses from where I was raped and used for human trafficking and sold for sex. Since it happened, I have not come over here. Here's the Melton. To me, she's the best person I've ever met, because she believed me. And I remember her promising me that she would put them away to where they wouldn't get out.
She's only 17 years old, but prosecutors say at 13, she was a child sex slave.
Did they sell you to other guys?
Yes.
Investigators say brothers Bobby and Juan Moreno locked the girl in a bathroom after she went to their East Side home. The girl says both men repeatedly raped her and told her cruel things.
And I deserved it.
Living in fear, the teen says the Moreno brothers threatened her and her family if she ever spoke out.
If I ever try to get away and I said anything, something was going to happen to me or my brothers.
The state is expected to rest its case on Monday. Now, if convicted, Moreno is facing life in prison. His brother Juan Moreno is serving 4 life sentences.
And then that jury went back and they deliberated. And they gave life sentences across the board. And this jury stayed. They stayed to talk, and they looked at me and they said, "You tell her that we gave life because she was worth it." She has sacrificed on behalf of other people. The pain of telling her story, the struggle to tell that story and relive those moments in her life, she did it because it will help others. She is sharing this story specifically so that no one has to suffer what she has.
How can you be the one? Pay attention to the people in your community, your surroundings, and report red flag behaviors. Do not wait to call. Make your report timely. Those moments matter. Don't approach traffickers yourself. That can place you, the victim, and any future prosecution in danger. If the conduct you have observed is an emergency, call 911 and tell them you believe you have observed human trafficking. Don't worry about being wrong. Your call may be the one that saves a life. If it's not an emergency or you need to remain anonymous, call the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-3737-888. Provide actionable information, descriptions of cars, descriptions of people, when and where you saw the conduct, and take a picture if you can safely do so. Those details make a difference.
You are the one person, the one moment, and the one act who can save a life. You have the power to be the one.
Speak up. Speak up. It takes one voice, and it doesn't cost a dime.
Be the one in your city.
Be the one in your high school.
Be the one on the road.
Be the one in your neighborhood.
Be the one on your street.
Be the one for your neighbor.
Be the one to save a life like mine.